Nate, a young boy struggling to survive on the streets, sneaked onto a luxury yacht one night, hoping for food and shelter. As he hid among the guests, performing small acts of kindness, he was discovered. Suddenly, the yacht's owner, Evelyn, stood before him, her face filled with shock. What followed was beyond anything Nate could have imagined. He thought his life was about to change forever, and it did, but not in the way he expected. Nate carefully slipped onto the yacht's deck, moving like a shadow in the night. His small frame blended into the darkness, his clothes loose and worn, a stark contrast to the gleaming opulence around him. The yacht was a world apart from the cold streets he knew so well, every step he took revealing new luxuries he had only seen from a distance. He had to be quiet. Any noise could mean discovery, and he wasn't ready to be caught. As he moved further into the yacht, the sounds of laughter and clinking glasses grew louder. Nate peeked around a corner, his eyes wide with awe as he caught sight of a grand party. The guests, dressed in expensive gowns and tailored suits, moved gracefully under the soft glow of the chandelier, a scene straight out of a dream. His breath caught in his throat. He knew he didn't belong here, yet he couldn't pull his gaze away. Nate took a deep breath and continued, staying close to the shadows. He passed by trays of food, the aroma overwhelming his senses and reminding him of how hungry he was. His stomach growled, but he didn't dare reach out just yet. He had to be careful, patient. A small act of kindness here, a quiet gesture there. Anything to go unnoticed and perhaps earn a scrap of food. But every moment felt like a gamble. Suddenly, as Nate leaned in to pick up a napkin that had fallen, a hush fell over the area. He froze, his heart pounding in his chest. When he looked up, he saw her. Evelyn Harrison, the owner of the yacht, stood before him, her face a mask of shock. She was beautiful, commanding, her green eyes fixed on him as if she were seeing a ghost. For a moment, neither of them moved, the world around them holding its breath. Nate felt the weight of her gaze, a mix of curiosity and something else, something he couldn't quite understand. His mind raced with thoughts of escape, but his feet felt glued to the ground. He had hoped for a chance to change his life, but now, as he stood before Evelyn, he realized he was on the brink of a different kind of change, one he hadn't prepared for. The silence stretched, and in that brief moment, the future felt like a mystery waiting to unfold. Nate wandered through the opulent corridors of the yacht, his eyes wide with amazement. The walls were adorned with elegant artwork, and the floors gleamed with polished wood. Every corner he turned revealed more luxury, from lavish lounges to sparkling chandeliers. For a moment, he forgot about his hunger and fear, lost in this world that seemed like a dream. He marveled at the grandeur around him, his small frame nearly disappearing in the vastness of the yacht's wealth. As he explored, Nate noticed a vase precariously balanced on a table's edge, almost tipping over as a guest brushed past it. Without thinking, he darted forward and steadied it, ensuring it didn't fall. He acted quickly, his movements light and unnoticed, and then slipped back into the shadows. He watched as the guest continued without a second thought, unaware of Nate's small but significant act. Further along, Nate saw a woman struggling to pick up a napkin that had fluttered to the floor. She seemed frustrated, her expensive dress restricting her movements. Nate, seeing an opportunity, quietly approached and picked up the napkin, placing it back on the table before she could notice. He smiled to himself, feeling a sense of pride in his stealth and kindness, even though no one saw him. Moving towards the upper deck, Nate peeked around a corner, observing the guests mingling at the party. They laughed and danced, their faces full of joy and contentment, a stark contrast to the life he knew. He could see their carefree expressions and the ease with which they moved. For a moment, he imagined what it would be like to be one of them, to feel that kind of happiness. He knew it was a world he didn't belong to, but the thought lingered, a spark of hope in his heart. Suddenly, he felt a presence behind him. He turned slowly, his heart racing, but it was just a crew member passing by who didn't even notice him crouching there. Nate let out a sigh of relief. He knew he had to be more careful. This world, as beautiful as it was, held risks he couldn't afford to take lightly. Yet, The allure of it all kept drawing him in, making it harder for him to stay hidden. He continued to watch the guests, a mix of longing and determination in his eyes, wondering what would come next in this unexpected adventure. The atmosphere on the yacht subtly shifts as Steve Thompson, the security officer, begins to sense that something is amiss. His eyes, sharp and alert, scan the room with a growing suspicion. He has been on the job long enough to recognize when something feels off. The noise of the party seems to fade into the background as he focuses on the small details. A misplaced napkin, a vase that seems slightly out of position. He starts to walk slowly, his steps deliberate, his posture stiffening with caution. Steve moves through the corridors with a heightened sense of alertness. His footsteps echo softly on the polished wooden floors, each step measured and cautious. The shadows cast by the dim lighting seem to play tricks on his eyes, but he remains focused. His hand rests instinctively on his radio, ready to call for backup if needed. The tension is palpable. He knows he must stay calm but vigilant. As he approaches the upper deck, he pauses for a moment, his ears picking up faint sounds, a muffled movement, the soft patter of feet. He turns his head slightly, his eyes narrowing. The low light makes it difficult to see clearly, but his instincts tell him that someone is nearby, hidden from view. He takes a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. He is determined to uncover what's going on. Steve reaches the top of the staircase and looks down, his gaze sharp and intense. From this vantage point, he surveys the guests below, searching for any unusual behavior. His expression is stern, a mix of authority and concern. He notices a few glances being exchanged among the staff, as if they too have sensed something is not quite right. The unease grows, and he knows he must act soon. He decides to make his way towards the far end of the deck, where the shadows seem thicker. Every muscle in his body is tense, ready for action. As he moves closer, his eyes dart from side to side, his senses heightened. He can feel the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Whatever is happening on this yacht, he is determined to get to the bottom of it, no matter the cost. Nate notices a young child, no older than 5, standing alone near the edge of the deck, her face streaked with tears. The child looks lost and scared, clutching a small toy to her chest. Without hesitation, Nate walks over, his expression softening as he kneels down to her level. He speaks gently, his voice calm and reassuring, as he asks if she's okay and where her parents might be. The little girl, still sniffling, looks up at Nate with wide, tear-filled eyes. She's too overwhelmed to speak, so she simply shakes her head, clutching her toy even tighter. Nate offers her a comforting smile, his presence somehow making her feel a bit safer. He carefully wipes away her tears with his sleeve, showing a kindness that goes beyond his years. As Nate continues to comfort the child, his attention to her needs is unwavering. He takes her hand in his, gently guiding her away from the deck's edge to a safer spot. His words are soft and encouraging, doing his best to distract her from her fear, talking about her toy and asking her name. The child begins to relax, her tears slowing as she feels more secure. Unbeknownst to Nate, one of the yacht's wealthy guests, a woman in her late 40s, observes this tender moment from a distance. She's drawn to the scene, her curiosity piqued by the boy's unexpected kindness. She watches quietly, her expression contemplative, as she wonders who this child is and what his story might be. Nate's face reflects a mixture of concentration and compassion as he continues to engage with the little girl. His deep brown eyes, filled with sincerity, show a maturity beyond his years. He reassures the child that they'll find her parents soon, his calm demeanor helping to ease her anxiety. In this moment, Nate's true character shines through, unnoticed by most, but not by all. Nate hears footsteps approaching, his heart racing with a mix of fear and adrenaline. He quickly scans the room, searching for a place to hide. The opulent interior of the yacht offers few options, but he spots a large, elegantly decorated table nearby. Without a second thought, he darts behind it, crouching low, trying to stay out of sight. The footsteps grow louder, and Nate peeks out from his hiding spot just enough to see the dark, polished shoes of a security guard passing by. His body tenses, every muscle coiled with the instinct to flee, but he forces himself to remain still, barely daring to breathe. The guard's stern expression and focused gaze make it clear they're looking for something or someone. Nate's hands grip the edge of the tablecloth tightly, his knuckles turning white. He knows if he's caught, there will be serious consequences. His mind races with possibilities, each one more frightening than the last. He stays completely still, hoping the guard will move on and not think to check behind the table. As the guard passes, Nate feels a brief moment of relief, but it's quickly shattered when another guard appears, joining the first. They exchange a few words, their voices low and serious. Nate's heart pounds in his chest, louder than the guard's footsteps, louder than anything else in that tense, nerve-wracking moment. The second guard glances in Nate's direction, his piercing blue eyes narrowing slightly as if sensing something amiss. Nate holds his breath, every second stretching into an eternity. He knows he has to remain calm, to trust that his hiding spot will keep him safe, at least for now. Guests on the yacht begin to whisper among themselves, their eyes darting around with a mix of curiosity and unease. Conversations blend into a murmur, filled with speculation about the mysterious incidents that have been happening. Some guests share their theories, while others express concern, their voices filled with nervous laughter. The tension grows palpable, each passing moment heightening the sense of unease that seems to seep into every corner of the opulent vessel. Evelyn stands apart from the crowd, her bright green eyes scanning the room with a look of deep contemplation. She senses something is amiss and feels a growing need to get to the bottom of it. Her presence commands attention. She is used to being in control. As the owner of the yacht, Evelyn's curiosity is piqued, but she's also determined to maintain order. She approaches a small group of guests, her demeanor calm yet authoritative, as she subtly probes for any information they might have. With a graceful yet firm step, Evelyn moves toward the edge of the yacht's deck, her gaze now focused on the horizon. She tilts her head slightly, as if trying to piece together a puzzle. Her mind races with possibilities, her thoughts interrupted only by the occasional breeze that brushes her long, straight blonde hair away from her face. From above, she appears to be in a position of control, surveying her domain. But beneath her composed exterior, there is a growing concern. She knows that whatever is happening must be addressed quickly, or the unease could turn into something far more difficult to manage. Nate moves cautiously through the dimly lit corridor, his small figure darting between the shadows. His heart races, knowing he must find a way out before he's caught. But his luck runs out. Steve Thompson, the stern security officer, suddenly steps into view, his piercing blue eyes locking onto Nate. There's a tense pause as Nate realizes he's been discovered. Steve's expression is firm, a mix of surprise and authority. The air thickens with tension as the two stare at each other, the silence amplifying the urgency of the moment. Steve's voice cuts through the silence, demanding to know what Nate is doing on the yacht. Nate, feeling trapped, stands his ground, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and defiance. Steve steps closer, his posture towering and intimidating, but Nate doesn't back down. Instead, he clenches his fists, a spark of determination lighting up his deep brown eyes. The confrontation intensifies, a silent battle of wills, each waiting for the other to make the first move. The standoff escalates as Steve reaches out, attempting to grab Nate's arm. In a quick, agile movement, Nate dodges, slipping just out of Steve's grasp. The dynamic shifts rapidly, Nate's small size and agility against Steve's strength and experience. The tension is palpable, every second stretching into what feels like minutes. Nate knows he has to think fast if he's going to escape, but Steve is not giving up easily. The conflict between them grows, the stakes higher with each passing moment. The tension in the corridor mounts as Steve, clearly frustrated, warns Nate that he's ready to call the police. His voice is firm, filled with authority, and his stance is rigid. Nate's face tightens with fear, his eyes darting around as he contemplates his next move. Just as Steve reaches for his radio, Evelyn steps into the corridor, her presence commanding immediate attention. Her bright green eyes are sharp with curiosity, her lips slightly pursed as she assesses the situation. She raises a hand, signaling Steve to pause. Her demeanor is calm yet firm, a mixture of intrigue and control that catches everyone off guard. Steve hesitates, clearly surprised by Evelyn's sudden intervention. Nate, seeing a glimmer of hope, stays silent, his eyes fixed on Evelyn. She steps forward, her elegant dress flowing softly, a stark contrast to the tension-filled atmosphere. She questions Steve, her tone measured, almost amused. "Why would we call the police over a boy?" she asks, her gaze flicking between Steve and Nate. Steve, unsure of how to proceed, lowers his radio, his stern expression softening just slightly. Evelyn's curiosity grows as she looks at Nate, sensing there's more to his presence on the yacht than meets the eye. Evelyn turns her full attention to Nate, her expression shifting to one of genuine interest. She asks him what he's doing on her yacht, her voice gentle yet probing. Nate, still wary but sensing an opportunity, explains in a hesitant voice that he's looking for something, though he doesn't reveal what. Evelyn listens intently, her eyes never leaving his. She senses a story behind his words, something deeper than just a random trespasser. Her intrigue deepens, and instead of dismissing him, she invites him to explain further, a decision that leaves both Nate and Steve surprised, setting the stage for an unexpected twist. Evelyn's eyes narrow slightly as she begins to question Nate, her tone shifting from curiosity to a subtle intensity. She asks him directly what he's doing on her yacht, her voice calm yet probing. Nate hesitates, unsure how much to reveal. His deep brown eyes meet hers, and after a moment of silence, he starts to speak, his voice low and uncertain. He tells her that he wasn't just wandering aimlessly, but that he was looking for something important that he believes is hidden on the yacht. Evelyn listens intently, her expression softening as she senses the sincerity in his words, yet she remains cautious, waiting for him to continue. As Nate speaks, he reveals bits of his life, explaining that he's been searching for something that belonged to his father, who had worked on the yacht years ago. His father had passed away recently, leaving behind only fragmented stories about a hidden treasure on the yacht. Nate's voice wavers slightly as he talks about his father, the pain of loss evident in his tone. Evelyn's expression changes from one of interrogation to sympathy as she realizes the depth of Nate's situation. She doesn't interrupt him, allowing him to speak freely, her green eyes reflecting a mix of emotions as she listens. When Nate finishes, Evelyn remains silent for a moment, processing everything he's said. She finally speaks, her voice softer, almost gentle. She acknowledges his pain and the difficult situation he's in, but warns him that searching for something on her yacht without permission is not the way to honor his father's memory. Nate nods slowly, understanding the gravity of her words. Evelyn then surprises him by offering her help, suggesting they work together to find whatever it is he's looking for. This unexpected offer leaves Nate both relieved and apprehensive, unsure of what this alliance might bring. Evelyn decides to allow Nate to stay on the yacht temporarily, creating a wave of tension among the guests and crew. She makes a formal announcement to the group gathered on the main deck, her voice steady but firm. As she explains her decision, some guests exchange uneasy glances, their expressions ranging from surprise to disapproval. The crew members, particularly Steve, the security officer, appear tense, clearly uncomfortable with the idea of keeping an uninvited guest aboard. Nate, standing to the side, looks around nervously, feeling the weight of their judgment. He knows he has to prove himself and not cause any more trouble. The guests begin to murmur among themselves, their whispers growing louder as they discuss Evelyn's unexpected decision. Some express their concerns openly, questioning the wisdom of letting a stranger stay on a luxurious yacht. A few of the crew members, like Lucas, the young crewman, try to calm the situation, suggesting that they should trust Evelyn's judgment. Despite his words, there is a visible unease in his demeanor. The tension is palpable, creating an atmosphere thick with uncertainty and speculation. Nate stays close to Evelyn, sensing that he might be safer by her side for now. As the day progresses, the tension doesn't ease. The crew continues with their duties, but there is a noticeable strain in their interactions. Evelyn watches closely, aware that her decision has disrupted the usual harmony aboard her yacht. She glances at Nate occasionally, wondering if she made the right choice. The guests, meanwhile, remain divided. Some attempt to continue with their leisure activities, trying to ignore the awkwardness, while others keep a close eye on Nate, suspicious of his every move. The air is filled with a mix of distrust and curiosity, as everyone wonders how this unexpected situation will unfold. Nate, feeling increasingly uneasy about his presence on the yacht, begins to plan his escape. He sneaks around the yacht, memorizing the layout and identifying possible escape routes. His eyes dart around nervously, watching for any sign that someone might suspect what he's up to. He finds a small, unused lifeboat tucked away on the lower deck, partially covered with a tarp. It looks old but serviceable. He checks its condition, making sure it's ready to be deployed at a moment's notice. His heart races as he hears footsteps approaching, but they pass by without stopping. Nate decides this lifeboat will be his way out if things go wrong. As the sun sets, casting a warm glow over the water, Nate gathers a few supplies he thinks he might need for the journey. He stealthily moves around the kitchen, grabbing canned food and a bottle of water, stuffing them into a small backpack he found in a storage room. He also takes a small flashlight and a multi-tool. Every noise makes him jump, every shadow makes him feel watched. He's convinced that it's only a matter of time before someone notices his actions and decides to kick him off the yacht or worse, hand him over to the authorities. He can't afford to be caught now. He needs to be ready to leave at any moment. Late at night, when most of the guests are asleep and the crew is on a lighter shift, Nate makes his way to the lower deck again. The yacht is eerily quiet, the sound of the waves gently lapping against the hull. He carefully removes the tarp from the lifeboat and begins to lower it quietly, hoping the sound of the waves will mask any noise he makes. His hands tremble slightly, not from fear, but from the adrenaline pumping through his veins. He knows this is his chance to leave before things take a turn for the worse. As he secures the lifeboat, he takes one last look around to ensure no one is watching, ready to execute his escape plan if the situation escalates further. As Nate tries to figure out his next move, he hears a soft voice behind him. It's Lucas, a young crew member in his mid-20s with a kind face and a friendly demeanor. Lucas had been watching Nate for some time and could sense the boy's desperation. Seeing Nate's actions reminded Lucas of his own troubled childhood, growing up in a tough neighborhood where every day felt like a battle for survival. Lucas approaches Nate with a compassionate look, understanding the turmoil the boy is going through. He quietly offers his help, whispering that he knows a safer way off the yacht. Nate is hesitant at first, unsure if he can trust Lucas, but something in Lucas's eyes tells him that this man understands his plight. Lucas guides Nate to a small storage area where they can talk without being overheard. He tells Nate about his past, how he grew up in a rough part of the city and had to fight to make something of himself. He sees a bit of himself in Nate, young, scared, and looking for a way out. Lucas decides to help Nate not just out of empathy, but also because he feels it's his chance to do some good, to be the kind of person he needed when he was a kid. Nate listens intently, his initial skepticism fading as he sees the sincerity in Lucas's story. For the first time, Nate feels a glimmer of hope, thinking he might have found an ally in this daunting situation. Together, they begin to plan Nate's escape more carefully. Lucas suggests a different route, one that avoids the security cameras and the areas where the crew is likely to be. They map out their path, whispering in hushed tones, their heads close together. Lucas gives Nate some tips on how to stay unseen, sharing tricks he learned from his own past. He even offers to distract any crew members who might be in the way, ensuring that Nate has a clear path to freedom. The trust between them starts to build, creating a bond that could be the key to Nate's successful escape. As they finalize their plan, Lucas gives Nate a reassuring nod, silently vowing to help him until the end. Nate and Lucas huddle together in a dimly lit corner of the yacht's storage room. With hushed voices, they brainstorm on how to keep Nate safe and out of sight. Lucas, drawing from his experience growing up in a tough neighborhood, suggests they move strategically to avoid being seen by the security cameras and other crew members. He shares stories of his childhood, where quick thinking and careful planning were necessary for survival. Nate listens intently, absorbing every word, knowing that his safety depends on their combined wits and courage. They lay out a rough map of the yacht, using whatever paper they can find and a worn-out pencil. Nate starts marking the safe zones, places he's noticed that are less frequented by others. Lucas, meanwhile, points out potential hiding spots, like behind the kitchen storage or under the lifeboat tarps. They exchange ideas rapidly, their voices filled with urgency, yet a budding sense of camaraderie. Nate feels a sense of relief for the first time, realizing he's not alone in this. He has someone who understands the stakes and is willing to help him. As they finalize their plan, Lucas suggests that Nate disguise himself as a crew member temporarily. He hands over an old cap and a crew jacket he had kept for emergencies. Nate hesitates for a moment, uncertain if this plan will work. Lucas places a reassuring hand on his shoulder, telling him they have no choice but to be brave. The trust between them deepens, and Nate nods, determination hardening in his eyes. Together, they decide it's time to put their plan into action, hoping their strategy will be enough to keep Nate out of danger and buy them more time. Nate finds himself alone in Evelyn's private office, a room he was never supposed to enter. Curiosity overcomes him as he notices a drawer slightly ajar. With a mix of hesitation and intrigue, he pulls it open, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside, he finds a collection of letters and photographs. His eyes widen as he recognizes one of the faces in the photographs. It's Evelyn, but much younger, standing next to a man Nate has never seen before. As he scans through the letters, he realizes they detail a secret from Evelyn's past that could change everything about his current situation. Nate carefully goes through the documents, his heart racing with every page. Each letter reveals a little more about Evelyn's secret life, a life that she had kept hidden from everyone on the yacht. He discovers that Evelyn once lived a very different life, filled with struggle and hardship, similar to his own. This revelation shakes Nate to his core. He starts piecing together a new understanding of who Evelyn truly is and why she might be motivated to help or harm him. His mind races with possibilities, but one thing becomes clear. He now holds a powerful piece of information. As Nate absorbs the gravity of what he has found, a new determination fills him. This secret could be his leverage, a way to negotiate his safety, or perhaps even find a way off the yacht. He realizes he must approach Evelyn carefully, using this newfound knowledge wisely. His expression hardens as he folds the documents back and hides them securely in his jacket. He steps back from the drawer, his mind already planning his next move, knowing this secret could either be his salvation or his downfall. Nate steps cautiously into Evelyn's office, his heart pounding as he clutches the hidden documents inside his jacket. He knows this is a risky move, but he sees no other option. The secret he uncovered might be his only leverage to escape his dire situation. Evelyn is sitting behind her large, polished desk, her eyes narrowing as she notices his tense posture. She knows he has something important to say. Nate takes a deep breath and begins to speak, revealing that he knows about her hidden past. He tries to gauge her reaction, looking for any sign of weakness or guilt, but Evelyn's face remains unreadable, a mask of calm control. As Nate continues, he lays out his proposal. He wants out, safe passage away from the yacht and back to his old life. He thinks he has the upper hand, but as he speaks, a cold smile slowly spreads across Evelyn's face. She leans forward, her voice low and almost mocking. She tells him that the information he has is worthless and that he has no idea what he's truly dealing with. Suddenly, Nate feels a wave of doubt. Did he miscalculate? Is this a trap? Evelyn's words are sharp, cutting through his bravado, and for a moment, Nate feels small and powerless, unsure of what to do next. Panic begins to rise in Nate as Evelyn stands up, towering over him from behind her desk. She moves around, slowly closing the distance between them. She tells him he's made a grave mistake and that the real danger is yet to come. Nate realizes too late that he has underestimated her. He tries to back away, but she steps closer, her presence intimidating. With each step Evelyn takes, Nate feels the walls closing in. His desperation grows as he understands that what he thought was his ticket to freedom may have just sealed his fate. His mind races, searching for a way out, but every option feels like another trap. On the deck of the yacht, tension mounts as the crew members begin to whisper among themselves. They glance suspiciously at Nate and Lucas, who are standing apart, their expressions tense. Lucas tries to keep a calm demeanor, but Nate can see the doubt creeping into his eyes. The crew is growing restless, questioning the motives of both Nate and Lucas. Someone from the group mutters that they might be planning something against Evelyn. Nate hears this and feels a chill run down his spine. He knows that the situation is spiraling out of control, and they need to act fast before everything falls apart. The murmurs grow louder, and distrust starts to settle in the air like a thick fog. Lucas steps forward, trying to address the crew. He raises his hands, attempting to calm them down, but his voice shakes slightly, betraying his own uncertainty. He explains that they are all in danger and need to work together. However, some crew members are not convinced. One of them, a tall man with a scowl, steps forward and accuses Lucas of being in on whatever scheme Nate is planning. The accusation hangs in the air, and Lucas struggles to find the right words to defend himself. Nate looks at Lucas, his heart sinking, realizing that the fragile alliance they had built is starting to crumble under the weight of suspicion and fear. The tension escalates further as more crew members voice their doubts, their words sharp and distrustful. Nate tries to speak up, to convince them that they are on the same side, but his words are met with skepticism. The group is divided, with some siding with Nate and Lucas, while others are swayed by fear and uncertainty. Nate can feel the urgency of the moment. He knows they need to come together if they have any chance of escaping this nightmare. As the arguments grow more heated, Nate glances at Lucas, who nods subtly, signaling that they need to think of a new plan, fast. But in the growing chaos, it becomes clear that nothing will be easy from this point on. Nate stands alone on the deck, the cool evening breeze ruffling his curly black hair. He looks out at the vast expanse of the ocean, his deep brown eyes reflecting a mix of confusion and despair. The events of the past days weigh heavily on his young shoulders. Doubts swirl in his mind. Had he made the right choices? Every decision seemed to push them deeper into a mess with no clear way out. He begins to question himself, wondering if he should have done things differently. His confidence wanes, and a sense of hopelessness begins to creep in. The ocean, once a symbol of freedom and adventure, now seems endless and empty, mirroring the turmoil within him. As the minutes tick by, Nate's thoughts grow darker. He sits down, his back against the cold railing of the deck. He pulls his knees close, wrapping his arms around them, feeling a need to shield himself from the overwhelming uncertainty. The sky above is clouded, much like his thoughts, filled with gray and shadow. Nate's mind wanders back to the beginning, to the moment he thought he could turn things around, believing he could handle anything. But now, each plan has led to more problems, each choice to greater peril. The weight of it all presses down on him, leaving him feeling smaller, more vulnerable. He tries to find a spark of hope, something to cling to, but everything feels out of reach. In his solitude, Nate begins to reflect on his actions and their consequences. He knows he must find a way forward, but right now, the path is shrouded in doubt. He thinks about his friends, the crew, and even Lucas. What if they were right to doubt him? What if he truly didn't know what he was doing? He had always relied on his quick thinking, his adventurous spirit, but now those qualities seem to have led him astray. Nate feels a surge of frustration mixed with fear. He needs a new plan, a way to regain control, but his mind is clouded, his heart heavy. The ship rocks gently beneath him, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside him. As Nate sits alone, staring blankly at the ocean, his mind starts to piece together moments from the past few days. He recalls Lucas' subtle gestures, like the way he would always seem to know which way the wind would turn or how his eyes would dart towards certain objects as if he knew something others didn't. Nate's gaze falls on a small compass that was left on the deck, an object that seemed out of place among the more modern equipment. He picks it up, feeling the cool metal in his hand, and turns it over, noticing a tiny engraving on the back that he hadn't seen before. The letters are faint, but they spell out something that triggers a faint memory. It's a clue, he thinks, but to what? He puts the compass back, a spark of curiosity igniting within him. Nate's eyes scan the deck, and he notices a coil of rope neatly arranged, much like how Lucas always kept it. It looks just like the one used during their last attempt to secure the boat against the storm. Yet this rope is untouched, clean. Why would Lucas have a separate rope, hidden away? His thoughts race, remembering how Lucas always seemed to appear just when they needed him, but never too early, never too late. Could he have been holding something back all along? Nate's mind starts connecting dots, forming a vague picture. There's something here he's missing, something Lucas knows. He gets up, determined to find more, to uncover whatever it is that Lucas might be hiding. As Nate moves through the yacht, he passes by a room he hadn't paid much attention to before. A quick glance inside shows charts and navigational tools scattered across a desk, some familiar, some not. He steps in, eyes drawn to a folded map at the edge of the desk, partially hidden under a book. He pulls it out, and as he unfolds it, his breath catches. Markings, unfamiliar routes that diverge from the known path, leading somewhere off course. His heart races. This could be it. This map might hold the answer, the clue that ties everything together. But even with this new information, the full picture is still hazy. There are still pieces missing, pieces only Lucas might have. Nate grips the map tighter, knowing he is close but not quite there yet. He needs more. He needs to find Lucas and get the truth. Nate stumbles out onto the deck, his heart pounding as the chaos around him reaches its peak. Waves crash violently against the sides of the yacht, the boat rocking uncontrollably under the force of the storm. The crew is shouting commands, their voices barely audible over the roaring wind and thunder. Nate watches as Lucas struggles to hold onto a rope, his face twisted in fear. Water splashes over the deck, drenching everyone and everything in its path. Nate's mind races, trying to make sense of the frantic movements and desperate cries for help. He feels utterly helpless, standing amidst the pandemonium, his small frame dwarfed by the sheer force of the storm. For a moment, he considers rushing to help, but he's frozen in place, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the crisis. In the midst of the chaos, Nate spots Evelyn, clinging to the railing with a terrified look on her face. Her elegant clothes are soaked, her hair whipping around her face as she tries to steady herself. Nate knows he has to act. He takes a deep breath and forces himself to move, pushing through the wind and rain toward her. As he reaches out to help Evelyn, a powerful wave crashes onto the deck, sweeping both of them off their feet. They tumble across the slick surface, barely managing to hold on to the railing. Evelyn's grip is slipping, her strength fading. Nate grabs her arm, holding on with all his might, but he can feel his own strength waning. He glances around desperately, hoping for a miracle, but sees only the raging storm and the terrified faces of the crew. Nate's body aches from the effort, his grip on Evelyn's arm weakening. He can feel the cold water seeping through his clothes, the wind stinging his skin. His vision blurs with tears, a mix of fear and frustration. He looks up and sees Steve, the security officer, fighting his way toward them, his eyes locked on Nate. There's a flicker of hope, but it's quickly dashed as another wave slams into the yacht, causing Steve to lose his footing and fall hard against the deck. Nate feels his strength leaving him, his grip slipping further. He looks into Evelyn's eyes, seeing the same fear reflected back at him. This is it, he thinks. There's no way out. The situation has reached its breaking point, and for the first time, Nate feels truly defeated, with no options left. Nate is still holding onto Evelyn's arm, his strength nearly gone, when he suddenly recalls something his father once told him. A lesson about knots and how even the simplest twist could make something incredibly strong. He looks down at the rope dangling nearby, soaked but within reach. With a burst of determination, he grabs it and quickly ties a secure knot around Evelyn's waist, anchoring it to a metal post. He takes a deep breath, hoping this will hold. Just then, Steve regains his footing and moves toward them, his eyes wide with understanding. Steve grabs another rope and adds a second knot, reinforcing Nate's quick thinking. The boat sways violently again, but this time, they both manage to stay anchored. Nate's heart pounds, but he can see a glimmer of hope in Evelyn's eyes. She realizes what Nate has done, and there is a flicker of admiration on her face. The storm is still raging, but Nate's quick actions seem to have given everyone a brief moment of calm. Suddenly, the intercom crackles to life. It's Lucas, his voice steady but urgent. announcing that he's managed to regain partial control of the yacht systems. He reveals that if they can get to the main control room, they might be able to override the damage caused by the storm and steer the yacht to safer waters. The crew, drenched and exhausted, looks to Nate, seeing something in him that wasn't there before. Leadership, courage. Nate nods, and with a new sense of purpose, he moves towards the control room. Steve and a few others follow, while Evelyn stays behind, her expression now filled with cautious optimism. As they reach the control room, Nate spots the panel with flashing lights, indicating damage to the navigation system. He remembers the subtle hints he noticed earlier, the unusual layout, the concealed compartments. Suddenly, it all makes sense. The hidden controls they found earlier weren't just a curiosity. They were the backup systems designed for a situation exactly like this. Nate reaches out, activating a hidden lever, and the emergency systems come to life. The yacht stabilizes as the automatic controls take over. Evelyn, watching from the deck, sees the yacht leveling and feels a rush of relief. She turns, and for a moment, there's a genuine smile on her face, one of respect and gratitude. Nate's quick thinking and the unexpected resources of the yacht have turned what seemed like certain disaster into a miraculous escape. As the storm begins to calm, Evelyn looks around, realizing that this young boy has just saved all their lives, leaving her in awe of how everything had come together in the most unexpected way. The storm has passed, leaving behind a calm sea and a sense of renewed hope. The crew gathers on the deck, their faces reflecting a mix of exhaustion and relief. Nate stands beside Steve and Lucas, still catching his breath but with a newfound confidence. Evelyn approaches him, her eyes softer than they have ever been. She places a gentle hand on his shoulder and thanks him for his bravery, acknowledging that without his quick thinking, they might not have survived. There is a pause as she looks around at the others, then she offers Nate a proposition. She suggests that he join her on the yacht permanently, not as a stowaway but as a valued member of the crew, someone who has proven his worth and earned his place. Nate is stunned by the offer. He looks at Steve and Lucas, who both nod in encouragement. Sophia, standing nearby, smiles warmly at him, her eyes filled with pride. For a moment, Nate hesitates, thinking about the life he would leave behind, the uncertainty of his future. But as he gazes out over the vast ocean, he feels a sense of freedom he has never known. The world seems full of possibilities, and here, on this yacht, he has found a place where he belongs. He turns back to Evelyn, his face breaking into a grin, and accepts her offer with gratitude. As the yacht sets course for new horizons, Nate takes a moment to look out over the water. The sun is setting, casting a warm golden glow over everything. He feels a sense of peace, a feeling that he is exactly where he is meant to be. Evelyn watches him from a distance, a slight smile on her lips. She knows this is a new beginning, not just for Nate, but for everyone on board. The yacht sails smoothly towards the horizon, leaving behind the chaos of the past and embracing the promise of new adventures and uncharted waters. It is a fresh start, a chance to rewrite their stories, guided by courage, resilience, and the bonds they have forged through the storm.
This story moved me deeply, reminding us all of the transformative power of kindness and the unexpected ways in which life can offer us second chances. How did you come across this story? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. And if you're interested in more unforgettable cases, click on the video on your screen. See you there.